It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, DC Gomez. Hi, DC. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you today?
Doing great. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. Actually, thank you for coming back on the show. You were on the video show. We looked it up. It was almost exactly a year ago. It was December 23rd, 2022.
Oh, wow.
So thank you for coming back. It's nice to have you here. I'm looking at your website. You've got a whole bunch of books. Lots and lots of books, yeah. And I want to just touch on those briefly, and then we'll get to your new one. You've got a series called the Intern Diary series, right?
I do, yes.
And let's see, you've got 5 plus a novella in that series?
There is 5 novels and 3 novellas right now in that series, correct? Yes.
Oh, 3, okay. All right, then you've got the Cat Lady special. That's a standalone?
We're getting ready to upload the next novel in that. We have 2 contemporary dark humor novels in that series.
Okay. And then I see one called Another World, and it says it's sold out. So that's good.
That one's getting ready to transition. We're getting ready to do an entire Kickstarter campaign for that coming up next year, because it's a duology. So book 2 will be coming out next year as well for that one. So that's middle grade, young adult, high fantasy story. Pretty much it is a Wizard of Oz retelling.
Wizard of Oz retelling. Oh, okay, cool. Then Charlie, What's Your Talent? That looks like a standalone.
Yes. Charlie is a standalone. There is 2 books in the children's collection, and they're both very much designed to help little ones find out what they're good at. So you got Charlie, What's Your Talent, and Charlie, Dare to Dream. Okay,
so all of your books are generally for younger audiences?
I actually go all the way from little ones to adults. So there is nothing specific that makes any sense. I write for everyone in a strange sort of way. So
the Dare to Believe, Dare to Forgive, those would be for adults?
Yes, that is a devotional collection.
A devotional collection. Explain what that is. What's devotional? Is that faith? Is that religious, or what is that?
These ones are specifically religious in nature, but a devotional is more of a self-help. These are self-paced books, and it does start with a scripture to help people kind of center themselves. So you have Dare to Believe is for people to find their own inner strength. You have Dare to Forgive, which I found out is usually harder than it sounds. Everybody tells you, I forgive you, yet they bring back all the horrible things you've done in your whole life. So this one focuses on truly forgiving. You know what I'm saying, Douglas? People tend to say, I forgive you, and yet it always comes back up. And I was like, if you truly forgive somebody, those things that you let go should be gone, not always being resurfacing. And then you have Dare to Love.
Well, I agree with that, because it's forgive for the moment, but people tend to put those things on a shelf somewhere in their brain, and they keep it until the time is right. And specifically, if you have an argument with your significant other, then all that stuff comes back sometimes. So it's very strange, because if you have this sort of argument, I know for me personally, I've done this, and it's gone both ways, where you get into an argument about one specific thing that has happened now, and all of a sudden we're arguing about something that happened 15 years ago. And it's like, wait a minute, how did we get here? We started out with this, and then now we're back 15 years ago.
I learned that lesson very early on with my mother, who has a memory of an elephant. She'll remember everything. And I made a promise to myself to be very cautious with those words, because I didn't want somebody to go through that. Like, my mom would get mad and think back of things that I did 30 years ago. And I'm like, I can't remember what I did 30 days. Like, how do you remember that? But it made me very much aware that while she forgave me, she didn't forget it. And it was always on replay. And I'm like, oh, gosh, That is so much energy that is being wasted instead of being used to do the things that you want with your life, which is to follow your dreams and to follow your purpose.
Well, exactly. And I think we should note that forgive and forget are two completely different conversations.
Absolutely.
It seems
for healthy relationships,
yeah.
I think they should be both. You need both in order to have a healthy relationship moving forward.
Well, what do you think if you only had to choose one? Which one would you go with, forgive or forget? I think I'd go with forget.
Believe it or not, I agree with you, and it's kind of a little bit scary because we think of all of our old elderly who go through the stages of Alzheimer's in their life and dementia, and they forget everything, and people going, that is horrible. I'm like, it's horrible for the receiving end, but they're not in pain. They're not torturing themselves for the sins that they committed or whatever else. So forgiveness and forgetting is dangerous. I would like to be able to forgive without holding the resentment and truly letting it go.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Okay, so let's see. Let me finish your book list here. Then you've got The Hitman, book 1 in the Orders Assassin series. And then we've got next page. How many are on here? Let's see. Oh, this goes, okay. On and on and on. Okay. How long did it take you to write all these books?
I am actually a fast writer when I sit down to write. The concept usually is what takes me a little longer. Right now, I am like my next book is book 3 in the Orders Assassin series, and I have been playing with that for over 2 years, just the idea. But the actual writing, once I start and get my books all lined up, usually takes me about 45 days. But the process itself, and most people take for granted that the plotting and the thinking is part of the process. Bush is always asked, how fast do you write? I'm like, I can write 10,000 words in a day if I have to. Easy. But the actual creation of it, that takes a little bit more percolating. So I play with that for a while, which is the most fun for me. Like, I truly enjoy the creation process because once the book is done and you have your first draft, the rest becomes a craft. It's where you're polishing, you're cleaning, you're editing, you're making it ready for publication. Then you hit the business side. So I enjoy the creation. I enjoy the being able to sit with a book and just go on this crazy ride with my characters before it all hits the page.
Are you doing the whole thing yourself? I mean, are you self-publishing?
I am self-publishing, but technically I don't do it all myself. I do have editors, I do have cover designers, I do have formatters. So I have a small business. I'm a solopreneur, if anything, but I get to kind of work with incredible artists and talented creators to bring these books to life. I just happen to write the stories.
Okay. Are you doing this as a living or for a living? Or do you have something else you're doing?
I am very blessed that I have something else because I realized I needed that extra people. And people just kind of laugh about it. Well, my books are very full-time. It is still a business and it's still something that I love with work. But I do have a daytime. My mind needs a little bit of both, I realized. I always thought I wanted to be the author that just got to go home and just sit in the house and write for a living. And I got to do it for a while and realized I might hurt myself and the rest of the family. So I need to be out of the house in a semi-structured schedule in order to have the best creative life.
Well, also, it's not the easiest job in the world to make a living at. Writers...
It's very competitive now.
Yeah, I think more so. Well, I don't know. I've had this conversation with other people, too, where before the advent of self-publishing, I'm not sure it was any easier then because you had to get a publisher to even look at your book, and that was a major feat. But once, if you were lucky enough to get published, the payoff was, I think, better. I don't know. What do you think?
You have more control as an indie author. And right now, even if right now you go traditional, you still have to do a lot of the stuff by yourself. I think the generations of having publishers being your publicist also has changed. But we're still in an age that I think people have to be very comfortable with who they are as a creator. I have friends who say, I need to be traditional because I don't want to do everything you're doing. I have others that will never go traditional. So it depends how good and how much control do you need in your life and how well you can self-manage your time in order to pull it off. Sometimes that makes a difference in the world.
That's true. And I think also back before self-publishing, if you did get signed to a traditional publisher, they did more of the work for you that they don't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've had some major authors on this show who still have to go out and do their own sort of book tours and promotion that used to be the job of the publisher.
Right now, traditional publishers are pretty much focusing that world in like the 1%. So, the Stephen Kings of the world still get that treatment, the James Pattersons of the world. Most others, regardless whether you're indie or traditionally published, are still doing a lot of their own marketing. They're still doing a lot of that side that most authors don't realize. So yes, you're still contacting publicists, and you're doing book tours, and you're handling the marketing of your book as a whole different career.
So I'm looking at your PR sheet, and now you've got a book. The new one is called Tales of Christmas Villains. Is that correct?
It is.
Tell us a little about this one.
This is really exciting since I picked up a whole different hat. This is part of a Tales collection. I have now a co-publisher, Miss Jamie Dalton, and we started about 6 months ago discussing the possibility of us actually creating something that we could publish for other people. We decided to do a collection that we can publish to others. So this is a short story. There's a total of 5 of us in it. We have indie authors as well as some other publishers that are telling villains of like what is a little bit different about Christmas, So it's a little bit darker humor, has a lot of action. But the goal is, if this book had a narrator, the librarian is telling the stories for everybody.
Okay, so you've got Scrooge, thieves. Who else is in there? Oh, Jack Frost.
We have a Jack Frost. We have a couple of retelling of the Grinches. We have a Ice Princess with a darker ending than most people are prepared. Definitely urban fantasy. We have, a little bit of Hallmark cozy. So there's a little bit of everything for everyone who's looking for a Christmas collection that's unique. I think that's the best way to putting it. So we are excited to bring this to life and literally introduce people through something fun as a whole experience.
Is this book suitable for all ages? Because I'm thinking about somebody reading this, 'twas the night before Christmas kind of thing to their little kids on Christmas Eve. Would that be appropriate for this book?
I will not go young children. Anybody over the age of 14 and, 12 and 14 will have a blast just because they're very familiar with some of the concepts. I would not say a little one. Just because it doesn't have this fairy tale kind of ending that I think most parents are looking for a Christmas collection. This is much more the old dark sense of humor kind of crowd will love this collection.
Like I said at the beginning of the show, you were on just about a year ago. Do you remember what book you were at? What book you were promoting at that point?
I think at the time we were doing the Cat Lady series. I think that was the one we were promoting.
Okay.
So we were doing book 2.
I also see Tales of Halloween, spelled Howl, so Halloween. Is this also a collection of short stories?
This one is. This is the one that kicked off this series. We had 9 of us participating in it. So while Jamie and I are publishing, we're also the ones participating. We play the roles of interns within the series. And this one features stories specifically about shifters, specifically werewolves. So the goal for all the collections is that it has to have a magical element to them. Something magical has to be within the fantasy world. And then we just kind of give them the premise. That one is a little bit more, goes from no heat in terms of spice level to fairly spicy. So people who enjoy a little bit more fated-made romance have a nice little selection in here. While Tales of Christmas Villains doesn't have any heat at all. It's just kind of fun, short stories.
Did you have any particular experience in your life that you decided you wanted to do something specifically for Christmas? I mean, did you have like a traumatic Christmas at one point in your life?
I have not. I've actually been very blessed that Christmas has been very calm for us. Right now, most of my Christmas is away from my family. I think once I joined the military, I haven't been home in a while. So Christmas is not my holiday, my favorite one. I'm a Halloween kind of girl, I think, because I grew up in Salem. So most of my Christmas, I think, are very much We cook, we chill, and then we go to the movies.
You said you're from Salem, Mass?
I am.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I'm originally from Boston area, and I moved away in 2005 to Las Vegas, but I do kind of miss it. And I tell you, Salem was the greatest town to go for Halloween. It was incredible. I mean, you could just sort of feel the spirits there, I think. They used to have, I don't know, this was years ago, but they used to have like a town Halloween party. I don't know if they still do that.
They still do?
They still do,
Yeah.
Okay. I remember going to that
It's
a
bigger
couple
than
of
ever.
times. Yeah, it was incredible. And people would get all dressed up and walk around, and a lot of times it would be cold, and a few years it snowed, and there was some magical feeling about it. Never have I experienced that in any town for Halloween. I think it's the greatest place to go.
Absolutely. It still happens. It hasn't changed. There's always, I think this year my parents told me they had to close down the schools because there was no way to get the kids home with that many people in Salem. So it's huge and amazing.
That's great. Okay. Well, DC, I think on that we're going to kind of wind this down. So the latest book is called Tales of Christmas Villains. My guest is DC Gomez. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yes. Anybody who's looking for more information, check out dcgomez-author.com. I actually have a short story collection they can pick up from there. And if they're curious about my writing, is hey, check it out, take a look at it, have some fun.
Okay, great. And I guess the last question is, are you working on something right now?
I'm currently working on book 3 for the Hitman series. So there's the Order of Assassins series, and I'm looking at the book's going to call Deploy. So I'm kind of excited to get that out for next year.
Well, maybe we'll keep the schedule and you'll be back Christmas of next year on the show.
Oh, that'll be lovely. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, DC, it was nice chatting with you again, and best of luck with all of your work.
Thank you so much. You have an amazing holidays.